In today's video, we have lots to cover, including all kinds of off-season trade and UFA rumors. Today, we're looking at rumors on the Montreal Canadiens, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Chicago Blackhawks, San Jose Sharks, and the Buffalo Sabres, as well as some UFA stuff around the LA Kings. We got big news around Flyers goalie Ivan Fedotov, who's facing a significant suspension in international hockey. We have big news out of Utah, maybe adding to their front office. Lots more action around the NHL playoffs as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to cover here today. Let's first get started with the latest updates from the Stanley Cup playoffs. Last night, we saw the Carolina Hurricanes survive against the New York Rangers and extend the series to at least a fifth game. They're not going to be swept. It was the first loss for the playoffs in this year's playoffs for the New York Rangers. So they've been a phenomenal powerhouse so far, and we'll see if Carolina can build upon that. They turned back to Freddie Anderson. They did have a bit of a scare. They had an early lead. They came out really strong, got a lead. They had a 3-1 lead, but then the Rangers picked away at it and eventually got it tied up. And of course, late in the game, Shea scored a massive goal on the power play at that, and Carolina's power play had its struggles. So certainly nice to see them come through with a win on home ice for that matter as well. And then, of course, like I said, also get the special teams edge for that game. So certainly a big win for them. We'll see if they can build upon it and extend the series any further. Dallas took a 2-1 series lead over the Avalanche last night as the series shifted to Ball Arena in Colorado. A big 4-1 win for the most part. Jake Oettinger was pretty stellar and was the difference maker for Dallas to get that lead. So we'll see how Game 4 goes, if Colorado can get things tied up, or if Dallas will take a bit more of a stranglehold. Of course, tonight we got Boston versus Florida. It's currently in the first period as I record this video. Or actually, no, early second period, I should say. Brad Marchand is out tonight. Suspected concussion. They really didn't give any clear words or confirmation of that. But he's certainly out with what appears to be a head injury. I know a lot of Panthers fans originally denied it. I don't think there's really any denying it now, because now we have a second angle put forth tonight on the NHL on TNT broadcast, where they show the other side of the ice when Bennett hits Marchand in Game 3. He comes across and Cole cocks him right in the face, sucker punch him. Marchand had no way to defend himself, wasn't expected to get punched in the face. And the Bruins have come out flying tonight, have an early lead, and they've been a lot more physical too. They haven't necessarily made an effort to target Bennett, which is probably wise so far, because that can cause a major distraction to get them off their game. But certainly playing much better, but it's early. There's lots of time for Florida to come back. Like I said, it was 2-0 Boston as I started to record. We'll see things where things finish up. And the Oilers and Canucks go at Game 3 tonight. Of course, the series is tied 1-1 as the series shifts now to Edmonton. So we'll see if Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl can play as well as they did in the last game, and see where things go. The Canucks and Oilers have been a fun series to watch so far, and I hope it continues that way. Other news around the NHL, before we get into the rumor section, a couple of items. One, the new Utah team, of course, which we know is in the process of doing a survey to help determine the team name. We did do a dedicated video on that a few days ago. If you haven't had a chance to cast your vote, certainly do so. One thing that I did not like to see is I've seen, and people on social media, so they're not even really being trying to hide the fact, but there's people like in Arizona, so Coyotes fans, that are upset they lost their team, that are going on and voting for what they feel are the worst team names, trying to hope, I guess they're spiteful, and hoping that they come up with a really crappy team name and trying to vote against them. So I'm like, I don't understand that at all. I understand you're sad you lost your team, you're mad, you had all these feelings. Sure, okay, I get it. But those people in Utah that are getting a team, they had nothing to do with this. And they really shouldn't be the ones paying the price with a shitty name. So at the end of the day, grow up, for starters. Secondly, if you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at Muriel, who didn't get the job done. And the owners before him. You've been cursed with terrible owners in that market. I'm sorry that things didn't work out. Like I said before, I've been try to be supportive of the market. I really do, and hope they go back. I think it can work, but they need the right person. Like, I swear to God, it's weird how it's been cursed with idiot after idiot after idiot of trying to run that team. They just don't seem to want to get the good owners, and I'm not sure why. You don't see this in other markets. It's bizarre. It's been cursed the entire history of it. But yeah, it's not the Utah's people's fault, so don't knock that crap off. Really, like, come on. But in other Utah news, they are beginning to fill out their front office, and it looks like because of the change in ownership and the deeper pockets of Ryan Smith, they're going to be allowed to add to their front office staff, and it sounds like player agent for Wasserman, Chris Armstrong, might be joining the team in a senior management type role. That's not confirmed here as of yet, but reports from dailyfaceoff.com indicate that's something that's possibly happening. So we'll have to see where that goes. As I mentioned, Philadelphia Flyers goalie Ivan Fedotov is facing a lengthy suspension at the hands of the IIHF. Now, of course, this is because of the fact that he had a contract with Philly and basically went against it and played in the KHL anyway. Now, to me, I'm not blaming a goalie. I'm pretty sure that was done against his will. So we know that Fedotov signed, I believe it was a 2-year ELC because of his age, to go to the Flyers. And when he went to leave the country, he was stopped by government officials and forced to complete some military service. He was basically sent out to Siberia for a year, did not play hockey. When his service was up, they sent him back. He was kind of made to play in CSKA Moscow and in the KHL. And everybody knew he had a contract in Philly. The team didn't seem to care. If I'm the player after what just went down, I'm certainly going to be reluctant to go against what I'm being told to do. And anyways, after much deliberation, and I know the Flyers weren't happy, and IIHF already placed sanctions against them. Now they reviewed things further, and Fedotov has been suspended from international play, including the Olympics, for 3 years. There's also a 6-month ban for club play should he leave the NHL. So he can't just leave the NHL and go directly back to the KHL. He'd have to have a 6-month suspension in there. So he's probably not going to do that. I don't think he wants to do that. And as long as things work out with the Flyers, I fully expect him to remain in the NHL for an extended time. And CSKA Moscow has been fined the equivalent of $1.1 million. So yeah, that's, and I believe they're also, I think there's a ban on international transfers as well for players. I think it's 3 years, So certainly some heavy sanctions. A lot of people now raising questions and concerns about guys like Matvei Michkov and upcoming top star in the draft, Ivan Demidov. Are they going to have trouble getting over to North America to play in the NHL? You certainly hope not, but after what went down with Fedotov and what's going on in the World Forum here, you gotta wonder if it's possible. And I do wonder, even though a guy like Demidov should be theoretically the number 2 pick in the draft, maybe number 3 at worst, depending if they really want the big defenseman Lovchinov or not, should be 2 or 3. But our team's going to shy away and have him fall in the draft, and maybe he'll fall in the lap, kind of like Michkov did to the Flyers. It should be interesting to see. So we'll have to watch that closely. I wonder how this Fedotov situation will kind of have a effect on other things around the game like that. So we'll see where that goes. Some UFA rumors, then we'll get into some trade talk on the UFA world. There are reports that the Los Angeles Kings right now are unlikely to re-sign veteran forward Victor Arvidsson and defenseman Matt Roy. I mean, from a cap perspective, they're going to have their challenges like most teams. They got to redo the contract for Quinton Byfield, who's going to be in for a significant raise after a major breakthrough season. And of course, they have lots of other players making good money. This year, with Arvidsson being out a lot, they allowed them to dip into the LTIR pool, which was, obviously beneficial at times. So we'll see where those players end up. I have no doubt they'll have lots of interest on the open market. I mean, Arvidsson has had a lot of injuries, which could shy teams away, or at least cause them to not get much for term. But he's still a guy that can score, and it's the hardest thing to do in the league is score goals, and he's good at it. So I suspect for a middle 6 role, there'll be a decent amount of interest, but like I said, he may be forced to take a shorter term than he just completed. And Matt Roy is a right shot, top 4 defenseman. Depending on the team, of course, could be anywhere from a 4, 5, 6 guy, depending on how deep the team is. I think there'll be lots of interest in him as well. Right shot defensemen do seem to come at a premium right now. So, but both players at this point, at least, and things can always change, but right now they're not expected to return to Los Angeles. In the trade rumor front, lots to talk about there. Let's start with San Jose. I came across some reports indicating that there is a belief that Captain Logan Couture would actually wants out of San Jose and would like to get moved this summer and be able to get back to being in a more competitive situation. It's already been a few years since he's been in that competitive situation, and at this rate, he doesn't have a lot of time left in his career, and it's going to be a long time. You can tell, obviously, even with guys like Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini, who's expected to go first overall to San Jose in the draft. It's still going to be a long stretch before they can contend for playoffs and the Stanley Cup. So Couture, I would suspect his playing days are likely going to be done before we see that happen. So because of that, there is reports and belief that he wants out. Problem is he still has 3 years left on his contract, $8 million, and he's had a heck of a time staying healthy over the past couple of seasons. So that, good hockey player, but the body's clearly broken down. And here's another big issue. San Jose has already retained money on Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, and Tomas Hertl. So you can only have salary retention on 3 players at any given time. And all 3 of those players had more term on it. Brent Burns still has another year in his contract, and then that one will expire, and then they'll have a spot open up. But until the Burns contract comes off the books, which is another year away, they can't retain salary on anybody. So it's not like they can retain $2 or $3 million, knock his salary down to like 5.5, make it more attractive and trade him that way. Because clearly at 3 years of term, no team is going to take him an $8 million. That's hard enough even if he was healthy and even if he has been playing better. The fact that he's spent so much time injured and he's getting up there into his later 30s, it's risky and it's challenging. So as much as he's a great player and has had a good career, unless they can get a third team involved to be that salary retention, and for 3 years of salary retention for, $2.5 million or whatever it turns out to be, that's not going to be a cheap price. So I don't really know how it's going to work from the Sharks' perspective. Maybe they're willing to pay a decent draft pick to get him off their books. I don't know. Because to me, at this rate, you're almost going to have to pay the team taking him on some kind of incentive to take the contract because of all the injuries. And then on top of that, you're going to have to pay somebody else to retain the salary because you can't do it yourself. So it's possible he may not have a choice, but to get through another year, it would probably be wise, and from a value perspective, if he could be healthy this year and actually have a more productive season, it would increase his trade value, knock his contract from 3 years down to 2, which makes it easier as well. And then when the Burns contract comes off the books, then they could retain money on him themselves, make it cheaper for them to trade him, and they'd also have hopefully better value if he can play more this year and put up some numbers. So to me, this Logan Couture trade, it's something that very well he may want, but it might have to wait another year. It's just hard to say. Unless they do it at the trade deadline and they get a third team. It's just way too complicated. But Mike Greer's found ways out of all those other contracts. We'll give him some credit. Maybe he'll figure this one out too. There's word about the Buffalo Sabres when it comes to the NHL draft, that they are a team to watch when it comes to trading their first-round pick. Now, right now, they're selected to pick 11th overall, which they can likely get a pretty good player. But this is a team that needs to go from, rebuilding for, seems forever, 13-year playoff drought. Just missed the playoffs. The last 2 years, they've been in the mix, but have still fallen short enough. And it's gonna, when you look at the standings and you figure out like what you got to do, sometimes it's so close but yet so far. It's such a big gap to, or a big job, I should say, to jump a short gap. It seems like a lot, but it's not. So the Sabres could use help now. So they have lots of youth already in their lineup. They still have a few more good prospects coming. It makes sense to me that they'd be a team to watch when it comes to the draft and trading that first-round pick. If they can get themselves an impact player that can come in and play meaningful minutes in games immediately, whether it be a top 6 forward or a top 4 defenseman. Now with the Sabres, I think it's more likely they'd want a forward. They did get Bo Byram from Casey Middlestat at the trade deadline. So clearly I think they could find maybe better value in a player that they could kind of use a replacement stat, somebody who could, like I said, play in that middle six or possibly in their top two lines would be good. I mean, with Byram joining the mix in their back end, they've already got Mattias Samuelsson, Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin. They've got a pretty good group of young defensemen there. So, they're probably not going to want to use a pick like that to get somebody to play lower in the lineup on the back end. So unless they can get a combination of a forward and a defenseman, it's probably more likely they would target a top forward. But again, like I said, they have lots of players coming still that are either young and still getting established. Peyton Krebs is another name to watch as well. I could see them even packaging Krebs with a pick to get something even better. So we'll see. Buffalo Sabres, after changing the coach, will definitely be looking to change the personnel a little bit too, and that pick could be in play. The Montreal Canadiens, apparently, according to some reports, are still getting a lot of interest in defenseman Arber Xhekaj. Now, at this point, it's believed that Kent Hughes, the GM of the Canadiens, does not want to move Arber Xhekaj, but given the fact that Montreal has so many defensemen, there's lots of interest, lots of inquiries, lots of calls coming through, and he is a player of interest to a lot of other clubs. Understandably so. He's a bit different in his style. He's a huge guy, he's strong, not afraid to fight, and actually has a decent offensive part to his game, and defensively too. He's still going to get better. Not perfect. There's still obviously gaps in his game, but there's lots there you can see to build upon, and because of that, teams are interested, and obviously Montreal is too. Given the plethora of young D, though, like I said, when it comes to guys like Reinbacher still coming, and Logan Mailloux got a taste at the end of the year, what will his role be long term? Then you got Harris and Struble. You got Lane Hudson that just signed after his college season ended, not to mention the guys that are already getting bigger minutes on the roster, like Caden Gooley. Jonathan Kovacevic is there. You got Barron. There's a long list. There's easily about 10 defensemen that can play NHL minutes. You can only dress 6. That's why it's believed that 1 or 2 guys likely going to get moved out throughout the offseason. Maybe find areas of the upgrade other parts of the forward group, for example. But Xhekaj is still getting lots of interest. But so far, Ken Hughes is restrained and is believed that he won't be one of the D that are moved. But some of his teammates, like I said, I would probably say guys like Harris would be more likely, maybe Barron. But then again, Barron's one of the few righties, so I don't know if that's really likely. Harris, to me, between Harris and Struble, I think they only keep one of them. Hard to say, but those are, Xhekaj is less likely going to be one of those guys. Same with Lane Hudson. I mean, he's a unique player too that they certainly don't want to give up on as well. Chicago, another team to watch when it comes to the draft. A lot of players are believed to be interested in coming to Chicago as this young core group starts to build around Connor Bedard. So they're going to get more interest from players wanting to come for starters as they continue to build here. Of course, they draft second overall at the 24 draft. Whether they take the big defenseman and Levshunov or, which might be a risky pick, we don't know. And Ivan Demidov, really highly skilled Russian player. They're getting better for sure, and they've got some good youth there to build around with Bedard and these couple of these other top prospects, but there's more needed. And they certainly would be a player or team to watch when it comes to adding some good veteran help for Bedard so they can take steps forward. Clearly, guys like Nick Foligno are good additions, but they need more than that. And it's believed at this point that where they have 2 first-round picks, they have the pick from Tampa, which is around, I believe, 20th overall. And you got to remember, their second-round pick would be just 2 picks in, so it'd be pick 34. So if you have pick 20 and pick 34, that could be pretty valuable to package together to get a decent player back. So you're getting a first and a second rounder, but that second rounder is almost like a late first rounder. So look at some of the top 6 forwards that are expected to be on the market that could be made for trade. We're talking about guys like maybe Nikolai Ehlers at a Winnipeg or Travis Konechny at a Philly. I mean, it's not a given Konechny gets moved, but I'm sure they'll get interest in him for sure because he's a good player. So something like that. But look for Chicago to maybe package up some of those picks to bring in immediate help so that they can have a better, more competitive season and to give Bedard some stronger talent to play with and that top line. And in Toronto, Dave Pagnotta reports that as much as there's lots of talk around Mitch Marner and John Tavares, he believes, in his opinion, that John Tavares will not waive his no-move clause and that the value in trading Tavares would be combination because of his age, contract, etc., that it wouldn't be great value anyways. So he doesn't believe Tavares will be moved or even talk to about being moved, but he does believe that Mitch Marner will not only be approached about doing it, but then he'll agree to it. And I've heard this from multiple sources. There is belief amongst a number of insiders and reporters that seem to have some inside intel here. The Marner's kind of come to grips with being dealt and that he'll be okay with it. Pagnotta reports that it's not going to be a futures-based type of trade. They'll look for it to be more of a hockey trade where they bring in a different type of high-end talent. So it's going to be established talent for established talent, and he references the fact that there's been some talk about UC Saros in Nashville again, so this is the second different place this has been brought up. We did talk about Saros for Marner back a few days ago, and it's coming up again now from a different insider suggesting that UC Saros was available at the deadline, even though there's been comments from Barry Trotz saying that after what he's seen at the end of the regular season and playoffs that he'd like to sign Saros. That's also, you got to remember, GM speak for trying to up the kid's value. Clearly, he likes Saros, there's no doubt, but he's also got Askarov, who needs an opportunity, and may not really want to come in just as a short-term backup here. The Askarov has nothing much left to accomplish at the AHL level and is going to be looking for that bump up, and it could be upset and want out if he doesn't soon get it. And so the signing Saros to a long-term extension, to me, doesn't make a ton of sense when you have that kind of pedigree of a goalie in your system. So because of that, it's believed that if their Predators are approached for trade for Saros and are able to get that kind of talent, that it's absolutely going to be on the table. And they certainly need some high-end offense, and Marner is exactly that. He could be that guy that could come in and provide them with a shot in the offensive arm that they desperately were looking for. Certainly, like I said, the last 20, 30 games of the regular season, they played a lot better, but both ends of the ice, made a great run, got in the playoffs, ultimately lost in the first round. So we'll see, but Pagnotta feels that would be a terrific trade. He also says, like I said back last week, it would be a one-for-one trade. There would likely be other parts involved on both sides. I wouldn't be shocked if, like a Nick Robertson, for example, is packaged with Marner. And on the Nashville side, it's hard to say. Maybe there's a defenseman in there, right? We know Toronto, they're deep, didn't play too bad in the playoffs, but there's still room to maybe revamp that a little bit as well. And depending on the team, maybe it's multiple forwards. It's hard to say. It really boils down to it. In the case of Nashville, if it's a goalie, then it could be a D or forward, maybe going back. There's been rumors about Fabro being available. Would they want to talk to them about bringing Luke Shen back to Toronto for a third time? I don't know, but something along those lines. It would not be one for one. There would likely be multiple pieces on both sides should that type of trade happen. But interesting to say that it's being brought up here yet again by another NHL insider. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors. Does Marner to Nashville make sense, as well as all the other talk around the league? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around so you don't miss anything, and I'll catch you next time.